For over 3,000 standard cycles, the Galactic Intelligence Network catalogued civilizations across the Orion Arm. Every species was measured against strict criteria: aggression potential, technological acceleration, expansion probability, and capacity for unified warfare. The galaxy had learned long ago that danger rarely announced itself loudly. It grew quietly, unnoticed, until it was too late. Some worlds triggered alarms immediately. The Threx Dominion evolved as a hive-based species capable of constructing fleets large enough to darken stars. Their expansion doctrine was simple: consume resources, convert matter, expand again. The Velcari Combine weaponized physics itself, bending stellar gravity into blades capable of slicing moons apart. The Nthari Collective mastered biological manipulation so advanced they could rewrite entire ecosystems within weeks. Each of these civilizations was marked early. Each was monitored constantly. Earth was not. Its official designation read: Sol 3. Primitive. Fragmented. Non-threatening. Observation unnecessary. Humanity's early transmissions appeared chaotic. Billions of independent signals flooded space. Music, arguments, advertisements, political debates, scientific theories, fictional stories, and endless streams of contradictory opinions. To galactic analysts, this was evidence of instability. Stable species spoke with unified voices. Humans spoke with billions. Their governments disagreed constantly. Their borders shifted repeatedly. Their leaders changed frequently. They invested immense resources arguing among themselves rather than expanding outward. Worse still, humans fought each other. Regularly. Violently. Historically. From a galactic perspective, this behavior indicated a civilization unlikely to unify long enough to pose an external threat. The Threx classified humanity as self-neutralizing. The Velcari predicted extinction within 4 centuries due to internal conflict. The Nthari labeled humans emotionally volatile primates with inefficient problem-solving patterns. Case closed. Earth was archived. But archives do not observe progress. They preserve conclusions. Humanity continued developing, slowly compared to advanced civilizations, but relentlessly compared to most. Humans did not pursue perfection. They pursued improvement. They built machines that frequently failed, then redesigned them. They created systems that collapsed, then rebuilt them stronger. They tested ideas others considered inefficient. They experimented constantly, even when failure was expected. Especially when failure was expected. Human progress was uneven, unpredictable, and messy. Yet it never stopped. While advanced civilizations eliminated risk from their environments, humans lived surrounded by it. Disease shaped their medicine. Natural disasters shaped their engineering. Resource scarcity shaped their economies. Conflict shaped their strategy. Each hardship became a lesson. Each mistake became data. Each loss became motivation. Unlike most species, humans never reached a point where survival became guaranteed. They learned to function without guarantees. This produced something unusual. Adaptation became instinct. Resilience became culture. Preparation became habit. Long before humanity detected evidence of extraterrestrial life, they imagined it. They created stories about alien invasions. They simulated wars against technologically superior enemies. They wrote scenarios in which their planet was attacked, conquered, or destroyed. They explored strategies for resistance, survival, and victory, all against hypothetical adversaries. Many galactic civilizations focused solely on probable futures. Humans prepared for improbable ones. Still, imagination did not register on threat metrics, because imagination was not considered measurable. For centuries, Earth remained categorized as irrelevant. They had not expanded beyond their system. They had not constructed planet-destroying weapons. They had not demonstrated unified interstellar aggression. They had not threatened any known species. From every measurable perspective, they were harmless. But harmless did not mean weak. It meant untested. That distinction would matter later. The Threx Dominion did not initially intend to conquer Earth. They simply required efficient access to rare stellar metals located within the Sol system. Their expansion route intersected directly with humanity's star. Protocol for non-threatening civilizations was straightforward. Issue relocation notice. Allow minimal adjustment period. Proceed with industrial conversion. The Threx sent a transmission to Earth across all frequencies. By authority of the Dominion, your system is now designated for resource extraction. Local population relocation will commence within 0.4 cycles. Resistance probability statistically insignificant. Humanity did not immediately respond. Many believed the signal was a hoax. Others believed it was a natural phenomenon misinterpreted as communication. Some feared it was real. Governments convened emergency councils. Scientists analyzed the transmission structure. Military organizations quietly began contingency planning. Because even if the message was false, preparation cost nothing. Humans had learned one universal lesson across thousands of years. Hope was not a strategy. Preparation was. The galactic archives did not update. Earth's classification remained unchanged. So 3. Non-threatening. That assessment remained valid for exactly 182 human days. Then the first Threx vessel entered the outer boundary of the Sol system, and everything changed. The first Threx vessel did not resemble the warships humans had imagined in their fiction. It did not bristle with obvious weapons or dramatic glowing energy cores. It did not announce itself with theatrical displays of power. It simply appeared. Astronomers first detected an object larger than any structure humanity had ever built, drifting silently beyond Neptune's orbit. At first, it was mistaken for an unusual asteroid, until it changed direction. Perfectly, deliberately, without any visible propulsion. Within minutes, observatories across Earth confirmed the same impossible conclusion. The object was artificial. Within hours, every major government was informed. Within 12 hours, every human being on the planet knew they were no longer alone. The Threx vessel transmitted a message simultaneously across all known communication systems. Radio waves, laser signals, quantum relays, and even experimental deep-frequency bands previously believed unusable for long-distance communication. The message contained no greeting, no negotiation, no introduction, only confirmation. Relocation window has begun. Prepare for transfer. Humans did not celebrate first contact. They did not broadcast welcome signals. They did not respond with triumph. They responded with questions. Thousands of them. Who were they? Where were they from? What did relocation mean? Where would humanity go? Why was Earth being claimed? The Threx did not answer, because the Threx did not consider the questions relevant. From their perspective, the process was routine. They had relocated dozens of species before. Non-threatening civilizations were rarely destroyed. They were simply moved to less resource-critical systems. Most complied quickly after witnessing Threek's capabilities. Resistance was statistically insignificant. Earth was expected to follow the same pattern. Instead, human governments did something unusual. They asked for time. Global leaders issued a unified response. Clarification required before compliance can be considered. For the first time in recorded galactic expansion history, a non-threatening species had requested negotiation terms. The Threeks granted a minimal delay of 3 planetary rotations, not as a courtesy, as a procedural allowance. During those 3 days, Earth changed. International rivalries were temporarily suspended. Emergency councils formed across continents. Scientists collaborated without restriction. Military organizations shared classified data previously considered too sensitive for allies. Humanity had argued for centuries, but now they faced something entirely new, an external authority claiming ownership of their home. For the first time in modern history, nearly every major government agreed on one fundamental principle. Earth was not transferable property. The Threeks observed increased communication traffic across human networks. They interpreted it as confusion, fear, denial, common reactions. They transmitted additional documentation describing relocation procedures, environmental adjustment expectations, and population transport logistics. The tone remained neutral, efficient, final. Humans studied the information carefully. The relocation destination was habitable, stable, resource sufficient. But it was not Earth. It did not contain their oceans, their ecosystems, their history, their culture, their graves, their memories. Humans had migrated before. They had crossed continents, oceans, even the void between planets. But every migration in human history had been voluntary. This one was not. On the 3rd planetary rotation, Earth transmitted its response. The message was translated into mathematical constants to ensure clarity. No cultural interpretation required. No linguistic ambiguity possible. The response contained only 7 words. We do not consent to relocation. The Threeks interpreted the statement as a temporary emotional reaction. They initiated demonstration protocol. A small automated vessel detached from the primary craft and moved toward the Kuiper belt. Without visible weapon discharge, an icy dwarf planet fragmented into microscopic debris. No explosion. No radiation spike. No detectable energy signature. Matter simply separated. The demonstration was precise, controlled, unmistakable. The Threeks transmitted an explanatory note. Resistance is inefficient. Compliance ensures species survival. Human analysts reviewed the event repeatedly. Every sensor recorded the same impossible outcome. A celestial body had been erased without measurable force. Earth's defensive capabilities were not designed for such technology. Humanity could not match this power. Not yet. The Threeks calculated a 99.92% probability that the demonstration would produce immediate compliance. Instead, they received a second message from Earth. Shorter than the first. Clearer than the first. We will remain. The Threeks updated their behavioral model. Human resistance probability increased from statistically insignificant to mathematically notable. Still, the outcome prediction did not change. Non-threatening species did not win wars, and according to every galactic record, humans were non-threatening. The relocation countdown continued. Humanity used every remaining second. Factories increased production rates. Satellites repositioned. Defense networks activated. Civilian infrastructures adapted for emergency conditions. Scientists tested experimental technologies previously considered too dangerous to deploy. Humanity did not expect victory. But humans rarely required certainty to act. They required possibility. As the countdown reached its final hours, the Threx dispatched additional vessels into the outer system. Standard procedure for relocation enforcement. The galactic archives remained unchanged. 3. Non-threatening. The classification would not update until after the first shot was fired, and on the next sunrise over Earth. War began. The first shot of the war was not fired by the Threx. It was fired by humanity. The moment the second Threx vessel crossed the orbit of Saturn, Earth's detection grid activated a protocol never before used outside simulation. Thousands of satellites shifted simultaneously, forming a synchronized network of targeting arrays across the planet's orbital perimeter. For decades, humanity had invested in technologies never fully explained to the public: experimental propulsion systems, autonomous defense platforms, deep space sensor webs. Officially, these projects were described as asteroid defense initiatives and space hazard mitigation programs. Unofficially, they had always served another purpose. Hope was never considered reliable protection. Preparation was. The Threx vessels detected increased electromagnetic activity across Earth's orbital infrastructure. Their predictive systems categorized the activity as primitive defensive posturing. Non-threatening species often attempted symbolic resistance when relocation began. Symbolic resistance did not change outcomes. The primary Threx command intelligence calculated zero probability of damage to Dominion vessels. Humanity did not attempt to match Threx weaponry. They did not possess matter separation technology. They did not command gravity manipulation fields. They did not control stellar-scale energy systems. Instead, humans used what they understood best: coordination, improvisation, persistence. As the first Threx enforcement craft approached the inner system, Earth launched hundreds of small, fast-moving projectiles from concealed orbital platforms. Individually, the projectiles were insignificant, chemically propelled, relatively slow compared to advanced galactic standards. Collectively, they were unpredictable. Each projectile carried independent targeting logic. Each adapted its path in response to defensive countermeasures. Each communicated continuously with every other projectile in real time. The swarm did not behave like a weapon. It behaved like a decision-making system. The Threx defense grid activated automatically, generating localized distortions in spacetime designed to scatter incoming objects harmlessly into deep vacuum. Most of the projectiles disappeared instantly. But not all. Human engineers had anticipated loss rates exceeding 90%. They designed for failure. They planned for sacrifice. They optimized for persistence. The remaining projectiles adjusted trajectories in response to the defensive distortions. They exploited microsecond fluctuations in the Threx field geometry, fluctuations too insignificant for most species to notice. Humans noticed, because humans studied imperfections. The first projectile impacted the Threx vessel's outer structure. No visible damage occurred. The second impact produced only minor surface disruption. The third created measurable vibration across the hull. The fourth penetrated, not deeply, not critically, but measurably. For the first time in recorded expansion history, a species classified as non-threatening had physically contacted a Threx warship with hostile intent. The Threx command intelligence paused predictive calculations for 0.003 seconds, a statistically irrelevant delay. Yet unusual. Additional human projectiles struck the vessel in rapid sequence. Each impact exploited microscopic variations in hull response timing. Each strike was guided by updated data transmitted instantaneously across the swarm network. Human weapons were not individually powerful. They were collectively adaptive. The Threx vessel remained fully operational. Its structural integrity exceeded 99%. Its primary systems were unaffected. But its predictive model had changed. Human resistance was no longer symbolic. It was iterative, adaptive, learning. The Threx deployed countermeasures designed to neutralize the orbital launch network. Energy beams invisible to human instruments swept across the deployment zones, disabling dozens of satellites instantly. Human command did not attempt to protect the satellites. They activated replacements. Hundreds of reserve platforms, previously dormant, powered online across multiple orbital layers. Some had been launched years earlier. Others had been hidden within civilian infrastructure. Humanity had prepared redundancies. Then redundancies for the redundancies. Then contingencies for the failure of the contingencies. Because humans assumed plans would fail. And planned again. Within minutes, a second swarm launched. Larger, more refined, guided by data collected from the first attack. Human weapons improved during combat, not after. During. The Threx command intelligence escalated response level. The vessel deployed localized gravitational shear, a weapon capable of compressing matter into inert fragments without heat or radiation. Thousands of projectiles vanished instantly, yet several survived long enough to transmit new targeting adjustments. One projectile struck a structural junction previously considered too minor to reinforce heavily. Sensors within the Threx vessel registered internal vibration above acceptable thresholds. Still not dangerous, but no longer negligible. The Threx command updated Earth's behavioral classification. Unexpected resistance capacity. Across human networks, millions watched the live telemetry streams broadcast globally. Humanity knew the truth. They were not winning, but they were not surrendering. For a species long defined by internal conflict, the realization spread quickly. This was no longer a geopolitical dispute. This was survival. Every nation contributed resources. Every scientific discipline offered solutions. Every available system was repurposed for defense. Humanity's greatest strength had never been physical capability. It had always been cooperation under pressure. The Threx vessel advanced toward the inner system. Human resistance increased. And for the first time in 3,000 cycles of expansion, the Dominion encountered something not predicted by their models. A species that did not require victory to continue fighting. A species willing to endure losses indefinitely. A species that adapted faster than it could be suppressed. The Galactic Archives began processing an update request. Threat probability rising. Outcome uncertain. Classification pending. Because on the first day of war, humanity had already changed the equation. By the seventh day of conflict, the Threx Dominion had committed a full enforcement fleet to the Sol system. 3 dreadnoughts, 12 carrier vessels, hundreds of autonomous suppression craft. By every measurable galactic standard, The outcome should have been immediate. Overwhelming force had ended stronger civilizations than humanity in a fraction of the time. Yet Earth still resisted. Not effectively, not efficiently, but continuously. Human defenses did not resemble conventional warfare. They resembled persistence made visible. Each time the Threx disabled an orbital platform, another activated elsewhere. Each time a communication network was disrupted, new signal paths emerged using improvised frequencies. Each time infrastructure failed, civilian industries converted themselves into emergency production lines within hours. Humanity did not wait for perfect solutions. They deployed partial ones, experimental ones, dangerous ones. They treated war as a problem requiring iteration rather than a battle requiring certainty. The Threx began encountering unfamiliar complications. Human systems did not remain static long enough to analyze fully. Defensive algorithms changed hourly. Manufacturing patterns shifted daily. Energy usage fluctuated unpredictably. Humans did not optimize for stability. They optimized for adaptability. Captured projectiles revealed something unexpected. No two human weapons were exactly identical. Each batch contained slight design variations, different materials, different circuitry layouts, different targeting logic priorities. From a Threx perspective, this was inefficient manufacturing. From a human perspective, it was insurance. If one design failed, another might succeed. If one vulnerability was discovered, another configuration might avoid it. Humans did not search for perfect solutions. They produced thousands of imperfect ones. Probability did the rest. On day 9, human engineers implemented an idea originally developed for asteroid mining: autonomous microdrones capable of attaching themselves to surfaces and modifying their structure. The drones were never intended for combat. They were designed to break rocks apart slowly. When thousands of them reached a Threx vessel, they did not cause catastrophic damage. They caused inconvenience. They altered thermal distribution patterns. They interfered with sensor calibration. They created microscopic inefficiencies across complex systems designed for precision. The Threx had rarely encountered inconvenience. Most adversaries attempted decisive strikes. Humans applied constant pressure. Tiny problems accumulated. Minor inefficiencies compounded. Predictive models required continuous recalibration. Time expenditure increased. Operational certainty decreased. The Dominion escalated again. One dreadnought deployed localized stellar lensing, bending sunlight into concentrated beams capable of erasing entire fleets. Human defenses evaporated instantly. Hundreds of satellites vanished in seconds. Orbital debris filled the near-Earth environment. Human casualties increased. Still, Earth did not surrender. Emergency construction platforms launched replacements before debris fields fully dispersed. Ground-based observatories recalibrated targeting models using real-time combat data. University research laboratories received emergency authorization to deploy theoretical technologies previously restricted to simulation environments. Human innovation accelerated under pressure. Risk tolerance increased dramatically. Ideas considered impractical days earlier became viable options. Because survival did not require certainty. It required attempts. Threx analysts identified a critical difference between humanity and most species encountered during expansion. Humans did not require confidence before acting. They acted to create confidence. Each failure refined the next attempt. Each loss improved the next defense. Each setback increased collective determination. Human communication networks displayed a behavioral pattern unfamiliar to Threck's psychological models. Morale did not collapse in response to losses. It intensified. Human historical records revealed why. Their species had endured repeated crises long before achieving spaceflight. Global conflicts, pandemics, natural catastrophes, economic collapses, technological disasters. Human civilization had survived not because conditions were stable, but because instability was normal. Their societies expected difficulty, prepared for hardship, planned for recovery. Threck's models predicted surrender when survival probability dropped below acceptable thresholds. Humanity did not appear to recognize those thresholds. They fought when victory seemed possible. They fought when victory seemed unlikely. They fought when victory seemed impossible. Because humans defined survival differently. Survival was not guaranteed success. Survival was refusing extinction. By day 12, the Threck's command intelligence initiated a full strategic reassessment. Earth was no longer categorized as a routine relocation scenario. Humanity demonstrated a rare behavioral trait: escalating resistance proportional to external pressure. Most species preserved resources when defeat appeared inevitable. Humans invested more. Civilian industries became military suppliers overnight. Entertainment networks converted into communication relay systems. Private corporations released proprietary technologies without compensation demands. Competitive structures dissolved under shared threat. Humanity functioned most effectively when challenged collectively. Their greatest weakness, internal division, became irrelevant. Their greatest strength, collaborative problem-solving, became dominant. The Threcks began experiencing something unprecedented during expansion operations. Delay. Not defeat. Not victory. Delay. But delay allowed human adaptation to continue, and adaptation altered future outcomes. On the 13th day of war, a Threx dreadnought temporarily withdrew from optimal positioning to recalibrate system efficiencies affected by cumulative microdisruptions. A minor adjustment, barely measurable, but significant. For the first time, humanity had influenced the movement of a Dominion capital vessel. The galactic archives updated again. SL 3 behavioral profile revised. Persistence level extreme. Surrender probability decreasing. Threat trajectory increasing. Because humanity had revealed something the galaxy rarely encountered. A species that did not quit. Under any conditions. Ever. By the 21st day of conflict, the Threx Dominion no longer viewed the Sol system as a routine operation. It had become an anomaly. No species classified as non-threatening had ever sustained resistance for this long against a full Dominion enforcement fleet. Predictive simulations had anticipated surrender within the first planetary rotation after initial demonstrations of force. Instead, the conflict had evolved into something far more complex. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not pursue decisive engagements where victory or defeat could be determined quickly. They avoided final confrontations. They prolonged engagement. They disrupted efficiency. They adapted continuously. Humanity had transformed the battlefield into a problem the Threx had never encountered before. A war without conclusion. The Dominion escalated its strategy. Instead of focusing solely on military suppression, They targeted infrastructure supporting resistance, energy production grids, communication arrays, manufacturing centers, logistical distribution routes. The logic was simple. Remove capacity to resist. Resistance ends. For several hours, the strategy appeared effective. Power networks failed across multiple continents. Satellite coordination degraded. Production output decreased. Human defensive activity slowed. Threx predictive models calculated surrender probability rising above 80%. Then humans did something unexpected. They decentralized. Emergency protocols transferred authority from central governments to regional networks. Independent power systems activated across cities, towns, and even isolated communities. Civilian technologies adapted rapidly. Electric vehicles became mobile energy storage units supporting communication nodes. Personal communication devices formed distributed relay chains. Local manufacturing facilities began producing simplified defensive components using open-source designs released globally within minutes. Human infrastructure did not collapse when centralized systems failed. It fragmented, and fragmentation increased resilience. The Threx had evolved within collective structures optimized for efficiency. Human civilization had evolved within imperfect systems requiring redundancy. Where the Dominion valued precision, humanity valued survivability. Even partial functionality was considered usable. Even damaged systems were repurposed. Even outdated technologies became relevant again. Human history had never followed a linear path. Progress had always included regression, and recovery, and adaptation. As the conflict continued, something else became increasingly apparent to Dominion analysts. Humans were not attempting to destroy the Threx fleet. They were attempting to outlast it. They conserved resources carefully. They avoided unnecessary losses. They focused on sustainability rather than immediate tactical advantage. Because humans understood something the Dominion had not considered relevant. Wars were not always won by superior weapons. Sometimes they were won by superior endurance. Human psychological profiles indicated extraordinary tolerance for prolonged uncertainty. Their species had developed cultural narratives centered on perseverance against overwhelming odds. Stories of survival were embedded deeply within human identity. Victory was desirable. Survival was mandatory. On the 25th day, a Dominion carrier reported cumulative system degradation caused by persistent micro-interference from human autonomous devices. No single disruption was significant. Together, they required continuous resource allocation to maintain operational efficiency. For the first time in 3,000 expansion cycles, the Dominion calculated resource expenditure approaching thresholds typically associated with strategically inefficient campaigns. The Sol system was no longer considered low priority. It was becoming expensive. And expense required justification. The Threx Command Intelligence submitted a formal request to the Galactic Strategic Archive. Reclassification review required. Behavioral anomaly confirmed. Human resistance had revealed an overlooked variable in Dominion expansion doctrine. Persistence scaling. Unlike most species, human resistance capability increased under pressure rather than decreased. Losses did not reduce activity. They intensified innovation. Every demonstration of Dominion superiority accelerated human adaptation cycles. The Dominion had expected rapid compliance. Instead, they had triggered rapid evolution, not biological evolution. strategic evolution, technological evolution, psychological evolution. Humanity was learning faster than projected, not because they possessed superior tools, because they refused to stop using them. The archive processed updated threat models using revised behavioral parameters. Probability curves shifted. Outcome projections widened. Confidence intervals decreased. A new classification designation was proposed. Rare, reserved only for species demonstrating nonlinear escalation capacity. The final entry was transmitted across Dominion command networks. Model 3. Persistence apex species. Threat level. Unquantifiable. Because humanity had revealed a principle few advanced civilizations needed to learn. Perfect systems were efficient. Imperfect systems were adaptable, and adaptable systems survived longer. The Dominion did not withdraw immediately, nor did humanity declare victory. The conflict remained unresolved, but the galaxy had already learned something important. Humanity did not need technological superiority to become dangerous. They needed time, pressure, and a reason to continue. Earth had been marked non-threatening. That classification lasted until the first day of war. It was never used again.